Welcome back to BLOCKTV. It's time now for chain breakers. And today we're dealing with a chain that threatens to change the crypto industry as we know it. I'm speaking, of course, about Telegram, which is set to release their Telegram Open Network by the end of October. With the launch of this massive new network, one company is looking to capitalize by becoming the go-to marketplace for selling Gram tokens. Blackmoon Crypto is ready and aiming to monopolize the space, and I speak now to Moshe Joshua, CPO of Blackmoon, to explain how they intend to do it. Moshe, thanks so much for joining us.
Welcome to be here.
All right, so kick things off. Tell us how a relatively little known exchange like Blackmoon is planning to monopolize such a critical space that's about to open up in the crypto markets.
This has a lot to do with relationships that we have with Telegram, as well as a lot of relationships with owners who purchased the grams. So we will be the first exchange to go live, or at least the day of the ton launch. And we're also very much involved in assisting other exchanges to be able to go live. Part of the problem has to do with the newness of it all and the immediacy of it all. Part of it has to do with custody solutions that we were able to provide that probably the rest of the ecosystem is going to take probably another half a year, 6 months to a year to catch up to us. And part of it is that we've been focused on this for a year and a half since the very beginning. When Telegram started to raise capital. So it's just, we made that bet a year and a half ago knowing that Telegram was going to be a huge deal. And we're very much looking forward to it and excited to finally be here.
Okay, and speaking of how this is going to work in action, we all know that there's this contractually obligated deadline of October 31st that Telegram is required to get their system out. Yeah. We've seen reports emerge of investors getting information, of wallets being created on the 16th, et cetera, et cetera. But do we have a confirmed date? I mean, are you guys just ready to go, fingers on the button when it launches, or do you guys know something we all don't?
No, that's basically what it is. We're all just sitting and waiting on the button until it goes live. What I can tell you, as you mentioned, last week, investors got a letter pertaining to the operational step-by-step of how they are to receive their grams to execute the SAFT agreement that they purchased with Telegram almost 2 years ago now. So everybody's been very much looking forward to that. They have until October 16th to provide their publicly generated wallets, which very importantly, if you just roll it downhill and just follow the logic, the fact that public address wallets can be submitted to Telegram means that the mainnet code exists today. It's live and publicly available on GitHub. Those public address wallets obviously have to be available on the mainnet when it launches sometime in the next few weeks. So they're ready to go. They're just going through the motions of having to put that together.
All right, now let's talk a little bit about the impact that's anticipated from Gram here. Now, I know we get into a little bit of a speculative notion here, but we're talking about price. Initial investors paid either 37 cents or later $1.33 per token based on their initial investment, raising $1.7 billion in that initial investment round. And some of these were later sold on unauthorized secondary markets for as much as up to $4 a token. What sort of impact are we anticipating having in this marketplace that does have the potential in terms of its Telegram's user base and the potential for the size of the company and the growth to completely shake up the industry? How do you guys see this?
It's a great question. I'll start off with some of the other exchanges that tried to do something previously. They were selling futures against the delivery of an on-chain gram, which was something that I personally, I'm not sure exactly how that works out and how they put together.
And it was against the contractual limitations.
I don't know how they put that together. I don't know what the credit risk of that delivery was, but they were successful enough in at least putting out a price, an initial price. I think ultimately what we're seeing today, certainly from block requests that are coming in through our trading desk, is at or around, if not above, $3. So that is ultimately where we're looking to price this in the beginning. But primarily, I think that number is not some arbitrary number. I think if you asked me a few months ago, it would have been much higher because the ton network is looked at from a crypto side of things as the Ethereum killer, right? It's a smart contract-based blockchain. It's supposed to be much faster through lots of fancy terms like hypercube routing and stuff like that. But ultimately, everybody's betting on the fact that you're going to have access to the 300 million Telegram users and that you have a baked-in ecosystem into that.
Right.
So just comparing the Ethereum market cap to the number of grams in total that will be released in circulation, that alone, just on a side-by-side calculation, puts grams somewhere in excess of $5.
Right.
So, the discount to that, because it's new and everything else, kind of puts us around the $3 mark. And I think that that's where we're seeing that today. Ask me tomorrow, it could be a very different story.
I mean, and is there an impact you're seeing on the fact that we're the sort of bull market that launched 2019 seems to have petered out, at least for the time being? A lot of the alts market are down. Ethereum itself has seen considerable losses in the last few months. I mean, do you think that impacts the sort of speculative opening price?
Not at all. Not at all. I think just the opposite. I think a lot of the issues that the crypto market has been seeing in the usage pattern of transaction volume and even when we talk about, I won't even get into that. But ultimately, the idea that these crypto markets prices are valued based on their transaction volumes and based on their usage patterns, and the US dollar value of them is reflective of their utility, I think is just complete nonsense. It's just not true. So the fluctuations of price, I don't think has anything to do with the value of the markets themselves. I think the real utility value comes into the mainstreaming and the idea of people's actually using these things other than just traders trying to make a buck in secondary markets and building some arbitrage scenario. I think that alone is where the grams differentiates itself to these day-to-day fluctuations. I think it's decoupled from that environment alone, just because of the fact that you have 300 million users in Telegram. Do we know what the impact of that is going to be? We don't know. But I think the promise of that is very, very strong.
The promise may indeed be strong, but I suppose there's one other element that has to come into play with this. We've seen in the last several months, particularly in Europe and the US, strong regulatory reaction to Libra taking place. And people, a lot of regulators coming out saying they're concerned about Libra being a sort of a regulatory concern, as it were. Telegram and TON has seemed to have gone under the radar of a lot of those regulators at the moment, but are you concerned in any way that that might become an issue from an exchange perspective or in terms of the network itself, that there might be regulator backlash should it be too successful, I guess it were, too successful for its own good?
I think the Libra conversation and the Libra parallel is just exactly what I was saying before. From a marketing perspective, it's very easy to put Libra and Facebook up against Telegram and Grams just because of the marketing power of both of those companies and the user base and the ecosystems that they bring to bear. But on a technical level, as the securities conversation, they couldn't be any more different. Libra being a stable coin, based on however they're structuring it. They have the Libra investment token, they have Calibra, they have a lot of different structures of building that around, but ultimately, Libra is focused on being an asset-backed issuance. And anything asset-backed is defined as a security in any way, shape, or form. And you can even say something asset-backed is even potentially a currency. What's important related to Grams fits more into the conversation of a utility token. And it has been built as a utility token as it conforms to the same way that Bitcoin and Ethereum have already gained that utility token status from the SEC regulators. So the TON network is a new blockchain, the same way Ethereum is. The Grams are a coin issuance as a utility token, the same way Bitcoin is on the Bitcoin blockchain, the same way Ether is on the Ethereum blockchain, and Grams is on the TON blockchain. So I don't think Libra parallels what Grams are doing, and I'm extremely confident from my background, and I just happen to know that there are some really serious lawyers behind the issuance. I think what is confusing is that the Gram, just to put it out there on a technical level, since we're talking about it, the Gram itself doesn't exist yet. And the security that is the purchase agreement, the SAFT that investors invested in, is a security, as a Reg D issued security that happened 2 years ago. But all of that goes away once the grams are issued. So the grams being issued as a utility token completes and executes the SAFT. That security goes away, it converts into utility, and everything's the same as we know it today.
And at that point, the
It's
market
all
kicks
clean.
off.
And the market kicks off, that's right.
All right, so let's sort of delve in, because you touched on this already, but let's delve in a little bit to Blackmoon's sort of role in all this, because it might come as a surprise to a lot of viewers that you guys intend to, you know, if not totally monopolize, at least become a huge player in this new and establishing market with such a big scope, such liquidity potentially out there in the marketplace. Talk us a little bit through your guys' process and how you're going to be so central to what is a potentially, you know, multi-billion-dollar industry.
It's definitely already a multi-billion-dollar industry, and we are certainly not going to be monopolizing it, even though we probably could have. I think we made a decision a long time ago, over a year ago, that our role is to ensure that grams are successful across the industry, and I have been directly involved with talking to other exchanges in trying to help them provide liquidity on their exchange as well as ours. This is not an event for Blackmoon only. There is a gram event happening completely separate from Blackmoon, and you know, if we can help those other and assist in other exchanges grow and build that same use case, it's only going to help us all together. I think there's a business to be had globally that Blackmoon alone cannot own, and we're probably more valuable as a resource to other exchanges. But more importantly to our own investors, being able to be the central resource of pricing, of liquidity, as well as you know, all of our relationships to other exchanges, all of that kind of melds together with grams being the central point of reference.
Okay, and that and Blackmoon's sort of capacity in terms of developing that liquidity and whatnot. I mean, there is a relationship that comes there with a reported relationship with Gram Vault, that sort of association. Can you talk to that point at all?
Yeah, so Gram Vault is a separate company that is licensed in Switzerland as a custody solution, specifically built for the initial Gram owners. So I think 70% of those owners that gave money to Telegram in the SAFT, their initial distribution wallet that needs to be delivered on the TON network next week is going to be issued by Gram Vault itself. So Gram Vault was built to be that custody solution for those initial investor base. I don't know what the other 30% is going to be doing and how they're going to generate wallets, but actually Telegram gave them steps and software of how to generate a wallet. Again, all of that's open source.
Sure.
So that relationship between Gram Vault and Blackmoon is unique in the sense that we have the relationship to Gram Vault, but other exchanges have the same relationship to Gram Vault as well.
Right.
Gram Vault is its own entity as a liquidity provider, at least initially. And the services that they provide, Blackmoon understood that advantage early on. And I think it took a lot of other exchanges a little bit more time to get in touch with Gram Vault, understand their service provisions, understand how they work. And other exchanges might have some issues related to custody solutions in their own internal wallet mechanism. But other than that, there's nothing stopping other exchanges from listing grams as well.
Right. And you guys aim to provide those custody solutions that perhaps others...
Well, the Gram Vault is providing custody solutions. Blackmoon has its own custody solution in place for our investors on our exchange. And we work with Gram Vault together, you know, on discussions of liquidity and market making and custody solutions and pricing and block trading and distribution and, you know, just a regular traditional financial services company just with interesting assets.
Okay.
Yeah.
And lastly, just to sort of help conclude sort of the idea, you know, here we are, end of October or mid or early October, we're expecting the launch somewhere between the middle and the end of the month. Say, projecting out towards the end of the year, what impact are you seeing to come from this network, from this sale? Where do you sort of see the marketplace?
I have a lot of thoughts on that. We probably don't have enough time to go through
Throw a few
all
at me. Throw a few highlights.
Okay, so you have to consider there are a lot of portfolios, crypto portfolios out there. So you have ETFs, you have crypto funds, right? I don't know what the total number of that is. Let's just say, for argument's sake, it's $1 billion. Okay, it's probably way more than that, but just a round number. All of those funds, assuming grams are going to be a top 5 coin, top 4, top 5 coin, certainly at the Ethereum level, which is what the expectation is right now. All of those funds are going to have to rebalance themselves into grams. And what's really important is during that rebalance redistribution, a lot of those sensitive coins that are at the bottom of their baskets are going to see a lot of volatility for the new, what is effectively, sell pressure. I think that that's something that people need to be aware of. I think, maybe at the top of the list, Bitcoin and Ethereum representing almost 80% of the market, it probably can handle the load of the rebalance event. But the lower coins are going to, now this is going to take time because each fund has its own rebalance date, each fund has its own different mandate of rebalancing, but I think that this is something that's important. I think also the borrow rates going into grams is very important due to the structure of the release of liquidity of the grams, or that's going to happen over the next 18 months. And I think the interest rate on the borrow and the lending side of things as it relates to institutional investment that we're seeing from those funds, which we're talking to, that don't have a choice but have to rebalance just because they have to maintain their market capability. I think that's the unique part of grams that we've never seen before in this industry. You mentioned before about impact. The impact of grams, we've never seen a one-time event at the top 5 level of the market cap of the coins, whereas all of the other coins have kind of been built up either through hype or they've been built up through their own ecosystems. And I think ultimately that's really what the Telegram and the grams game changer is that it comes with a 300 million user base out of the gate, whereas Bitcoin and Ethereum had to take the last 5-10 years to build up whatever, how many wallets do they have? Bitcoin has what, 25 million wallets? Telegram's going to have 300 million wallets day one. I think that that's the game changer that everybody has to be aware of, and I think we can expect a higher volatility in the first few months because of that.
And just lastly, a quick point: do you see the liquidity coming into Gram being fresh liquidity coming into the market, or do you think it's going to be shifting, as you said, from those funds and from maybe some of the altcoins that perhaps aren't going to do so well?
It's really a one-way ticket. There's only one way to think about it. Right now, there are only 175 people or pockets that own grams, that will own grams on day one. And the distribution of those grams into a diffusion of a larger economy is a one-way sale. So I can honestly sit here and tell you that I don't know anybody, and I talk to a lot of them, I don't know anybody who's going to be dumping. Everybody is in for the long term. I'm sure there's some people that want to take some money off the table just because they've been sitting on an investment waiting to get their principal back for the last 2 years. But ultimately, these 175 investors are all qualified, huge, multi-billion-dollar funds that have been doing venture capital and been doing crypto investing for a long time. They have a very long view of what Telegram is doing, the Ton network. And I think that's more a problem of liquidity than anything else, because the existing investors aren't interested necessarily in selling out. So I think that's going to take some time to precipitate itself into the marketplace. Also, I would also add to the mix, developers are going to play a huge role right now. So there are a lot of companies building incubators and abstracted layers of technology for developers to interact with the Ton network, and it's going to take some time until we start to see those apps on the Ton network mainstreaming. And it's not just about grams, it's a smart contract, total ecosystem of lots of different services that will start with the Telegram user base. So that impact, I think, is going to take a lot longer beyond the initial, hey, we're live with grams, do you want to own some, from a trader's perspective?
Certainly, it seems there'll be a lot to watch out for in the next days, weeks, and months ahead. Moshe, Joshua, I want to thank you so much for coming in to speak with us about this important issue and what's going to be developing there. Please stay with us at blocktv.com for all the latest in news and information. I'm Asher Westrop Evans. Thanks for watching.
For more news and updates, follow us on Twitter.